Good morning. It's Pause with Elizabeth Elenor, and today I've got a question for you. What if your boundaries, your choices, like your decisions about who you are, is actually all about your soul contracts with others? I want you to sit with that for a moment, and let's just gently close our eyes. I've just got myself a new table, and it's I can stand now, which is awesome. Just take a moment to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And just think about that question for a moment. What if your boundaries, your opportunity to stand in your strength, your power, your decisions, is all about soul contracts with others? It's something that, like, it's a given, right? When you think about it, is actually true, because soul contracts are all about having the opportunity to become more and more of yourself, more and more light, more and more ability to recognize yourself as the creator, as part of source, right? And in that process, as we go along, we're recognizing that we have the ability to make choices based on the misinformation that we had before, right? We've got choices that we've made in past lives. We've got choices that we've made in our childhood and in our growing up and, teenage years, and oh my gosh, the 20s. Oh my gosh, the choices that I made in my 20s are crazy. And we look at those things and we get to a certain point, and I know I have as myself. When I went through my 30s, I realized, you sort of start going through that process of looking and going, why did I do that? Why am I in this relationship? What am I doing with my life? And you've got two choices. You can start shaming and blaming and ridiculing others that are in your life, or you can actually look at your part in it. What's my part, and what choices have I made, and what are the stem of them? What are the origin of these choices for me to actually make these choices? And what am I going to do about it? Because growth is all about understanding, know thyself, right? Understanding where we come from, what is the pain and the anguish and the trauma behind what is happening in our lives, so that we can then shift that energy, those emotions, those feelings, that lack energy, and shift that energy and remember what we're here for. Remember why we're here having those experiences. So in my 30s, moving into my 40s, I thought that I'd sorted all this shit out, as you do. And I'd found myself in another relationship. And how I did it, I don't know. But obviously, and this is what I want to break down, obviously it was because I hadn't cleared all of the pieces that I needed to. So I'd been in an emotionally neglectful and emotionally abusive relationship from 16 to 26, and that sort of lasted for a while, because we had kids together, both of us. And I'm not blaming either of us, but both of us were emotionally broken. Both of us had lost our fathers early on. Both of us didn't really know our parent, our mother. Both of us had issues with our, you know, he had sisters, I had brothers, right? We sort of came together very wounded and were looking for healing from each other. And of course, that never works, right? However, through that process, I discovered myself and recognized that I needed to change. One of the reasons is because I had children. And when I had kids, I went, man, I need to sort this shit out. I need to work out, and I've got something else to look after. Excuse me. So I shifted and changed, and I became more, I started finding my voice and all of those things. And between the ages of 30 and 40, I got my stuff together, right? I became a qualified remedial massage therapist. I got a diploma. I built a really, really good business. My kids were going really well. All these beautiful things. Everything was going fantastic in my life. And then I met this man right at the end. And he wooed me and did all the things, right? But as soon as we got married, he just completely changed. He was German and he turned into Hitler big time. And it took me a little while to work out what was going on, because for me, I was like, what am I doing wrong? This is a second relationship that isn't working. It's got to be me. And I'm looking for the damage that's in me, and maybe I'm being too independent. That was one of the big things, maybe I'm being too independent and I need to let someone in. I started shifting that, and I did all of these things only to discover that this guy, potentially, one, he was a narcissist, and two, I had some beautiful friends at the time that were all psychologists, and they must have all been talking. I had 3 of them. They must have all been talking because they just put this little seed in every so often, in different directions. And they supported me to recognize that, one, I was in an abusive relationship, but two, that he, at the time, it was Asperger's, like now they've got a different label for it. And I had to stop and sit and go, what am I doing? And why have I created this again? What's in me that has created again for another man, the whole thing, another person in my life that I've got to heal. And I stayed and I stayed and I stayed. I didn't let go until, like I'm a dog with a bone, when I get the right question to ask, I then look and stay until I can work out what the answer is, right? I get the answer from the white rabbit moments that I call them now. So I stayed and I stayed and I stayed, and long story short, I ended up doing a, what do you call that? A weekend at, it was a self-care abdominal massage thing. It was part of my massage training. And through that, going into doing some womb work, I realized as a healer that I had this internal belief that I had to heal everyone that came to me. And I'd already sorted that out with my clients. I had already made the decision that if my clients weren't open to healing, that there was nothing I could do about it. I'd also already worked that out with my family. I'd stopped trying to heal my mother and my brothers, though sometimes I still go into that a little bit with my brothers. My dad died when I was 15, so there was none of that. However, there was this tie between my partner and healing my father, because my dad was on a kidney machine all my life. And so I had this process that, I was going to be a nurse and I was going to look after him. But he died when I was 15. So I still had this contract with my dad and with men that I loved, that I had to heal them in some way. So when I recognized that pattern, that belief, I literally was able to dissolve it straight away. I walked home the next morning. I didn't walk home, I drove home. The next morning, I basically said, you know, we're done, because it was so challenging for me and my kids. Once I got the message, once I got the actual process, the little seed that was holding me in another aggressive, dysfunctional, neglectful relationship, once I got it, I didn't want to be there anymore. And that's contract, right? Whether this guy knew or not, he and I had made a decision before we came down here that he was going to support me to get this last piece. In fact, I'm just now getting that potentially, if I'd got that belief and cleared it before he came, before the time and space that he was coming in, we wouldn't have met. I would have been on a different timeline. But because I hadn't cleared it yet, he was in my field for me, and both of us had made the decision, I'll come down, and as part of my contract with you, I'm going to support you to release needing to heal everyone that's in your life. And as soon as I released it, everything shifted, right? And lo and behold, it was a long time after that, but actually, yeah, it was a long time after that I met Tim. However, because I had cleared that, I had the opportunity to meet Makepeace when my last name was Payne, right? Complimentary. And so we have contracts with people, all sorts of different, like it's not like one contract. It's all convoluted, and there's all these little tiny pieces to it because everything's not linear like we think it is. There's so many different, you know, it's you could say it's a sphere. I'm not sure we could even place a shape on it, right? Because there is so many, every time you make a decision, you go onto a different timeline, or you have the opportunity to shift from one timeline to another, you know, jumping from one choice to another gives you another opportunity in a different lineage or a different line that you're going through. Your highest potential or mediocre, or, you know, going down the mangy rabbit holes, all of those things. We have the opportunity to clear all of the soul contracts that are holding us back from really achieving our highest potential and our destiny. And so when it comes to boundaries, when you really value yourself and you recognize what you love, what you want to receive more of, and what it is that no longer serves you. I mean, the things like the emotional neglection, right? If you're in a relationship where there's not a lot of spark, or there's not a lot of deep conversations, emotional affection, intimacy, care, then that's a boundary that needs to be addressed. Because I don't know any woman that doesn't want those things. And so if you're in a relationship and you're saying, oh, but we've been together for 20 years and that's the way it is, I call BS on that. Because habit can change things, But habit can also mean that you get stuck in patterns that are not serving you. I saw a reel yesterday, and it was actually of a woman taking, like a photographer, and she was taking photos of a husband and wife, and they were in their 70s, maybe even 80s, and it was the behind the scenes, and then they showed you the actual footage of, or the photos, and these two were having an absolute ball as they loved on each other, and she captured every single moment of that love. You know, them struggling to walk in the sand at the beach, and falling over in a little ditch, and all of the things, not being able to get up, all of those things. And you could see the love that was still between the two of them. So boundaries are important, and an interesting discovery, because you've got to self-reflect to understand what your boundaries are, and not just ditch them because of excuses. So we have this coming up, I think it's on the 8th of December. I am hopeless when it comes to the dates. I make the decision, and then my team do all the rest. So it's in my calendar. I think it's on the 8th of December, and I think it's a Wednesday. So if 8th is a Wednesday, it's if you've been hanging around for a while, you know that I've got a little mini course called Boundaries of Love, and it's like $7. If you want that, just put love into the comments. However, the reason it's a, just to tell you, it's a 5-day course that I ran that got such great results in the course that I decided to make it instant access and lifetime access, because, you know, some of the women got some amazing results. One woman was having a real struggle with her ex-husband, who was living just down the road and would just come in and walk into the house without any regard. Wouldn't, you know, just, anyway, was doing all this stuff. And through those 5 days, she was able to get her boundaries and her strength to actually say, no, you've got to wait at the door, you know, knock and let me know that you're here, give me a text message, don't just walk in and then start dictating to me like we're still together. And in those 5 days, she was able to negotiate that, and he even washed the clothes after swimming for the kids. She was like gobsmacked. So I have that, and this year, the end of this year, I'm doing a soul contract edition. So it's like what I call a monthly mixer. So it's going to be a 90-minute event, and it's got a little bit of a twist today at this time, because we're going to actually do a recode to clear the contracts that we have with people that no longer serve, but are still holding on. You know, old patterns. You might find yourself being in arguments, and this is why I wanted to do it now, because we're going into Christmas, right? And how many people go, oh my gosh, I'm going to see that auntie or that brother, and, you know, like, I always get into an argument with them, or I always feel uncomfortable, or whatever it might be. So that's why I wanted to do it here in December, because I want to clear things so that you've got more of your own light, more of your own strength within, and we can release those programs and that conditioning whenever you see that person, and shift the energetic field between the two of you. So contracts. Want to put into the comments contracts, and we'll send you the link for that. It's a paid event, so it's going to be like $33, and we're doing a really deep dive into all of the different layers. So if you've had past lives with these people, multidimensional aspects, there's all of these quantum particles that happen not just in this linear life, but it's actually generational. It's all sorts of stuff, right? There's so much, and I won't go into it now. Contracts, if you want the link for that, and I will see you next week. Take care.